Most people hear the words multi-generational living and they immediately think about bedrooms. Who gets the basement? Who gets the in-law suite? Can everybody park in the driveway without turning it into a family version of Tetris? And while all these details matter, it's not the whole story. After talking with families who have actually lived in a multi-generational household, one thing becomes very obvious to me really quickly, and that is that the house is usually the simple part. Living with someone whose view of the world was shaped decades before yours is where the real adjustment begins. There's one story that stuck with me, and it came from a woman who moved into her grandfather's house so that he would have company. And they were both living alone, and it just made sense. He was independent, deeply routine-oriented, and he was still even riding his bike to go visit his wife every day at the nursing home. And nobody moved in with a countdown clock running per se. They were simply sharing a home for that season, and then 6 months later, he passed. She was born in 1989, and his birth year was 1937. And so by the time that she arrived into the world, he was already 52 years old. This is not just a generation gap. This is two completely different operating systems trying to share the same Wi-Fi. Her experience, though, says a whole lot about multi-generational living, and a lot of her story is something that I'm going to share with you. Because when two generations share a home together, the furniture is only one piece of the adjustment. The bigger shift is actually combining the two realities. Hi, my name is Anita Cordell, and I'm a real estate agent here in Kansas City, and I have helped people move into a multi-generational household. And there are some things that are not talked about that I wanted to share with you in this video in case you are considering this. I'm just here to guide you with some things to think about. So here's the first thing that nobody really tells you. A fully functioning adult can somehow get demoted to a child status the moment that family gets involved. This woman had a career, she was getting bills sent to her in her name, her life was fully established, and for years she even was in a long-term relationship. And then she moved in with her grandfather and realized that he still saw her as this little girl that he's always known. No one was trying to be mean, and control was never the issue, but family just has a funny way of freezing people in time. I've done it with my grandkids. I have a 10-year-old grandkid, and sometimes I still look at her and see her as 5. And then I have a 4-year-old grandson, and sometimes I think of him still as 2. But the reality of it is, tax documents, back pain, your favorite laundry detergent, all of these may prove that you are growing up, and yet someone who loves you still remembers you as that child who needed help getting to the sink. And all of that is really sweet, but it also gets wildly inconvenient when you are 37 years old trying to function as an adult. Dating can get awkward and kind of feels different. Privacy takes on a whole new meaning. Normal routines suddenly seem to have an audience. Her boyfriend had been a part of her life for more than 5 years, but standards changed, and overnight stays were not a little something that they experienced. Dramatic conversation was not even required. There were just some things that were just simply understood in that environment. And anybody who lives with an older parent or a grandparent knows that feeling. Nobody has to announce that you're not 14 anymore. The house and the environment silently assigns the role. So the second thing that no one tells you involves money. It's not just about budgets. It's not just about bills. Money becomes almost this cultural translation exercise, if you know what I mean. Both of these people, the grandparent and this woman, were financially conscious. They were very responsible, and spending money wisely mattered to both of them. Respect for money existed in both directions, and still money flowed into their lives very differently. Social Security and pensions shaped his income, and 2 jobs shaped hers. He was born in 1937, and minimum wage in the United States was established when he was just 1 year old. And back then, minimum wage was only 25 cents per hour. And then you fast forward to today, and minimum wage in her state is $15 an hour. Those numbers, they don't even feel like they belong in the same planet. And then you talk about takeout. It created this very predictable conversation. It kind of went something like this. He would ask, "What do I owe you?" And she would then say, "Nothing, Grandpa, I got it." And that answer actually did not satisfy him. And so immediately this kind of internal investigation would begin. And he would say, "What? Do you know the owner and they just give it to you for free?" And then if she tried it again, she would just say, "Don't worry about it." And then he would have this other line ready to say and would ask her, "What are you, independently wealthy?" And then at some point, modern food prices stopped being worth the explanation. Peace became more important than accuracy. So she would then say $5. Sometimes she would answer $10 and then he would pay her. Any amount that sounded believable enough could prevent this financial hearing in the kitchen. And then the rest of the family came and there was this warning and she had to say, whatever you do, don't let him find out that Chinese food for one person costs $22 each. Because if he discovered the truth, then he would have thought that she'd been lying to him for months. And from his point of view, she kind of was. Egg rolls were not the issue. But what was underlying is that pride sat underneath that conversation. Independence shaped his response, and yet generosity looked really different to each other. Even the bills carried some emotion to that. And whenever she would offer to pitch in, he would reject it. And the money still had value, but in his mind, the house was his responsibility in providing for all of that for his granddaughter. And eventually the compromise became a little more practical. And so if the water or the electric bill was a little bit over or got increased because she was staying there, then they agreed to have her just pay the difference. And that arrangement made sense to him. Everybody was able to keep their dignity and nobody had to turn the utility bill into this courtroom drama. And packages arriving at the household created their own quiet comedy because a box would arrive at the door and then guilt appeared instantly and no one had to say a word. The cardboard alone seemed to whisper, "Explain yourself." Multi-generational living reveals very quickly that money is never just money. Sometimes pride is involved, and other times responsibility carries the weight. Love often hides underneath the awkwardness. And occasionally, family peace requires rebranding a $22 meal as $5. That's a lot to think about when you bring and bridge two worlds together. The third thing that no one tells you is that sharing a home does not mean constant togetherness. I think people imagine that multi-generational living is like this cozy movie scene where everybody gathers around the table and there's coffee brewing at all hours of the day and there's meaningful conversations every 11 minutes. Real life is usually much quieter than this. And in this story, both people had lived alone for so long before moving in together that silence was actually very familiar to them. And so separate routines made sense. Each person knew how to enjoy their personal space. So a shared roof does not magically turn either one into this social butterfly. So just remember, and don't feel guilty about that. Some days looked like just two independent people simply existing in the same house. She would often wonder whether or not she should go interact with him, and he might have actually been perfectly content keeping to himself. And that creates this strange little dance, right? Is the other person lonely? Does quiet mean peace? Should I check in with them? Would checking in with them become annoying? There's really no instruction manual for multi-generational living and the social part of it all. And one day she managed to get him out of the house with a couple of her friends and they went to a food truck park and he ended up having a wonderful time. Conversation, food, fresh air. And when he came home, he immediately took a nap. That may be the most 87-year-old review possible. 5 stars for that food truck. 0 remaining battery. The poor guy was simply tuckered out. But somehow that moment says a lot. So multi-generational living does not require constant interaction. It simply just creates opportunities that you would have missed otherwise. So the fourth thing that nobody tells you is that technology is gonna make you as a younger person feel brilliant. Not normal brilliant, but household wizard brilliant. So this woman would fix basic things around the house, and then suddenly she would feel like she performed a miracle. It was simple things like the TV remote, the Wi-Fi, a phone setting, some tiny electric mystery that literally took 30 seconds to solve. To her, it was ordinary, but to him, she may as well have landed a spacecraft in the driveway. That part can be really sweet and really momentum and have special memories that you're helping out the older generation. Everyone gets to contribute to something. One generation brings experience and grit and wisdom and perspective. The other generation brings a simple setting of an app. This balance is incredible. And then there's the story about the lawnmower. Household rules got really interesting there. She could work 2 jobs and her life was handled, and technology was something that didn't scare her. And there was plenty of responsibility already that sat on her shoulders. Touching the lawnmower, however, was absolutely not happening. That was not up for discussion. She was not going to do the lawnmower. If she even looked at the lawnmower confidently, then Grandpa was ready to intervene. So for him, mowing the lawn was actually his job, his contribution. He did not think that she was incapable, but certain roles had simply been written into his world long before she arrived in it. This is where multi-generational living gets super fascinating. Sometimes the issue is not the chores. Values formed in another area are bumping into the present. And learning what those values are for your specific family situation is going to be key. So the fifth thing that nobody tells you about when it comes to multi-generational living, that sound is part of the adjustment. This woman had been living alone in a quiet environment, and so had he. Suddenly, both of them were sharing this space, and what was interesting is that his hearing was not that great. And so normal conversations sometimes turned into this full house announcement system. So one example is she wouldn't just say, "Dinner's ready." She would have to project it like this opening in a county fair. And then the television sound, it becomes this whole other character in the house. At a certain volume, Wheel of Fortune stops being a show and becomes this immersive experience. You're not watching it, you're actually inside the wheel because it is so loud. The hearing differences can sound funny, and they often are, but it will change how the house feels. Quiet people sharing space, they have to adjust to each other. One way to adjust to each other is understanding the bedrooms. Bedroom placement matters. Kitchen lights matter. Television locations matter. And this woman in her grandfather's story, the house mostly worked well, but there was one issue that stood out that I want to share with you about. The kitchen actually sat between the bedrooms. And so if one of them used the kitchen early in the morning or late at night, then the light affected the other person's room. So small design details became much bigger when 2 people have 2 different schedules. So given another chance, this woman stated that she would have actually prioritized the bedrooms, making the bedrooms farther apart and set away from the main living space. And no one did anything wrong, it was just house design. But everyone deserves a little breathing rooms. So when you are considering multi-generational living, you will want to make sure that you talk about these things. So the sixth thing that no one tells you about is that independence may matter more than help. This woman's grandfather was incredibly independent, like I said, and meals were his own responsibility. Daily care belonged to him, and almost every day, like I said, he rode his bike to visit his wife in the nursing home. And Yet when rain came, it changed his plans, and then she would need to drive him. Otherwise, his routine stayed intact. And he maintained that independence all the way until the very end. And so moving in together was never about becoming his caretaker. They were roommates, and that distinction matters. She was there for companionship. Having her there meant that he was not alone. And if something happened, then someone was nearby to help him out. And still, his life was not hers to take over. They were still independent. This is probably one of the hardest lessons for families to learn. Love can still overstep boundaries. Good intentions sometimes remove dignity by accident. A person's needs can become so visible that their wants get overlooked. Multi-generational living asks you to hold both of these: care and respect, presence and space, support and independence. The only time that he really let her help was when he entered into hospice 24 hours later. And that says a lot. Some people hold on to independence until the very end, and loving them well means noticing that. The last thing that I want to share with you about that nobody talks to you about is that ordinary moments come those moments that stick in your heart. Not the big talks, not the perfectly planned family memories and the big, huge generational picture moments, just regular life. Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, the news, daily routines, the same familiar patterns. Moments can feel almost too small to matter while they are happening, but later those moments are the ones that you'll remember. Over time, she noticed the details that most people never got close enough to even recognize and see. Those routines anchored his day. The little remarks that sounded exactly like him, the way he moved around the house like every corner had history. And at the same time, over time, he started seeing her differently too. Not just as the granddaughter that he remembered growing up, but as an adult standing beside him in that season, capable, caring, present. Sometimes living together gives both people a clearer view of each other than they would have never had in a separate home. So if you're considering multi-generational living, yes, think about the house, think about the bedrooms. Parking deserves attention. Stairs, bathrooms, and the TV locations matter. But please think about, obviously, where the TV goes, but don't stop there. Before anyone combines households, I would encourage you to have that awkward conversation while everyone still likes each other. Talk about money, guests, privacy, chores, how you're gonna live, daily routines, medical wishes, noise, pets. Will you allow them? And those packages that come on the front step. And then what help is actually welcome. That conversation may feel really uncomfortable for about 20 minutes, but skipping this conversation can actually make your household really awkward for months. Once the family side is really clear on all of the goals and all of the things that you guys want to discuss, the home becomes so much easier. Once the family side is clear, then the home search, it becomes so much easier because you all know. And at that point, bedrooms are only the beginning. Distance matters, privacy matters, accessibility matters, sound separation matters, parking matters. Everyone is still gonna need to feel like an adult. And if you have lived with a parent or a grandparent or an adult child or in-law, I would genuinely love to hear what your experience was like. So put comments down below. I wanna hear what your experience was like. My guess is that it's not just about square footage. Ask deeper questions. Can we respect each other's routines? Is money something that we can discuss without making it awkward? Will everyone have enough space without taking it personally if somebody enters their space and you don't want them to? Can independence be supported without control taking over? Are we prepared to laugh when the same conversation requires 3 volume levels and a hand gesture? Because the thing nobody tells you about multi-generational living is that You are not just combining households, you are combining worlds. And when you do that with patience and humor and a lot of grace, you may gain something far more meaningful than a practical living arrangement. You gain ordinary moments that you will never forget. So if you want to talk about the multi-generational lifestyle and taking those moments and cherishing them with your loved ones, I would be honored to help your family. Be sure and click the Calendly link. It goes right to my calendar, and I would love to have a conversation with you about multi-generational living. To buy or sell, call Anita Cordell, and until the next video, God bless you.